Hello and welcome back. Today's subject is a very important kingdom for Welsh and Cymric history. The kingdom that I am referring to is Galwyddel, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. The area of Galwyddel has been inhabited since the 2nd century at least by Brythonic tribes, because we have a reference towards at least two of them from Ptolemy's geography in the 2nd century. These are the Novanti, which would live west of the River Dee, and the Selgovi, which would live in the eastern parts of it, and they also lived in other areas. Galwyddel as a kingdom was bordered to the south by the sea, to the north by Strathclyde or Ystrad in Welsh, and to the east by Galwyddel. Also, the kingdom did actually include the Ynys Manaw, or the Isle of Man in English, so we know the kingdom started some point in the 5th century with its first king, Tysgwal ap Cynwyd. Cynwyd himself was the king of Strathclyde, and on his death, Dwmgwel, the firstborn son, and Tysgwal would kinda share the kingdom between them. Dwmgwel would get the larger part of it, ruling from Artclwt or Dumbarton Rock in modern day, and Tysgwal would get the second half because he was the younger son and he wasn't as important. But I feel like he's kind of important due to the fact that he was a pagan, and so he's mentioned in the life of Saint Ninian due to the fact that he opposed Saint Ninian and his building of a settlement near Whitthorne. Nothing else is really known apart from him, but we do know he would die in 495, and his son Dingat would succeed him. After Dingat died, again, we're not really sure when he died, but after he died, his son Sennill would succeed him. And so we'd likely have a very successful or peaceful reign up until the year 550, when Rheged, which was starting to stretch its muscles under King Urien, would attack. And so you're thinking, why would they attack Galwyddel? They don't even have a border with them. How would they even get there first off? It's because Rheged was allied alongside Galwyddel, and we know this because they didn't join in the war against him in 573. So it's nice to see we can kind of get some contextual clues about how they did it. So Sennill would put up one brave fight, but after hard fighting for weeks, maybe even years, his forces would eventually be pushed back to the inland stronghold of Manaw. And we can still see traces of Rheged in the area of Galwyddel, but nothing in actual proper Rheged on its own. Because we can see there's a village called Dun Rheged, or if you kind of go and try and translate into Welsh, it'd be something like Dinas Rheged, because Dinas means city, and Rheged, you can kind of see it sounds like Rheged if you kind of mispronounce it. So, city of Rheged. Could have been a fort at one point as well to try to cement their rule. Either way, this would be the last king that would hold land on the mainland. So Nathan, the son of Sennill, was born in around 513, so he more than likely fought alongside his father in the attempts that they had to hold the invaders from Rheged and attempts to defeat them. He would inherit the throne at some point in the late 560s after his father's death. He would also be the first king of Manaw, just Manaw, not Galwyddel Manaw. So we don't know much about him apart from his son Rhyn, and we don't know anything about Rhyn or his grandson Tysgwal II. So we'll have to move on down to the grandson of Rhyn. That'd be Anlech. So Anlech has a role to play in the conquests of Edwin of Northumbria. So, Edwin of Northumbria, the big, powerful first king of Northumbria, and a saint as well. So Anlech would be around 36 when Edwin invaded, in around 626, so he was likely born some point between 590 and 591. He would bitterly resist Edwin and had the rules of the other Brythonic kings of the area, such as Brynich, Selcovia, Elmet, Rheged, Argoed, and Gwynedd would do after a while. So we know they fought a few months of traditional fighting until Anlech began a long guerrilla warfare campaign intent to drain the Northumbrian resources and free his homeland. And it took about 7 years worth of it until Edwin would be killed at the Battle of Hatfield by the forces of King Cadwallon ap Cadfan of Gwynedd and the junior partners of the alliance of Cynddellan of Pengwern, a king on his own right, and the King Clement of Dumnonia, possibly, that one's always possible, probably just troops he gave, and the forces of Elmet, what was left of Elmet's forces anyway, and the King Penda of Mercia. And so we know after this, he would return to his throne. Anlech would eventually die though, not very long after he returned to his throne, and his son Cynnin would take over. We don't know much about Cynnin, we don't know nothing apart from him likely participating in the war in Northumbria. Okay, I'm going to move on to the son of Cynnin. His name was Mermin Mawr. He'd be born about 630 at the height of the war with Northumbria. So his epithet, which is Mawr, means great, showing that he was either a very powerful king, and we do know the records do show they had a very powerful navy that was able to raid quite far, such as Ulster and Leinster in Ireland, and he was very notorious in Ireland, to the point where the Annals of Ulster do actually record him dying, which is quite a feat, I'd imagine. You were so well known among Ulster, and possibly Leinster, that the most important thing about around that time period is you dying in about 682, so we know his son Anarad would succeed him. Anarad was 32 when his father died, and so he more than likely participates in his father's raiding campaigns against the Irish and probably other ones that are not mentioned. He's likely got his epithet from that, his epithet Gwalchcrwn, which means the hawk crowned, or the crowned hawk. So we're not really sure what his epithet means. It could mean like he was a good archer, because that was quite a popular weapon the Welsh had at this point, or it could mean he had hawk-like features, or he might have had a hawk as his like coat of arms or personal sigil or symbol, or it could just be that he had good eyes. It could be a lot of things, as Welsh epithets are weird in general, like Crodwy Mawr, for example, his epithet Mawr. It can mean a number of things. It could mean the great, it could mean the tall, it could mean the fat, it could mean a lot of things, and we're not really sure, so I'm just going to go with the fact that I think it's something to do with archery, because it'd be something to prove himself with his father's raids, and he's like had enough and a lot of chances to prove himself, seeing as Welsh and Cymric culture was quite martial in the way it was aggressive and it was soldier-like, and quite poetic at certain times as well. So we do know that his son Titgwell would inherit the throne after him. He'd be Titgwell III, but nothing is known about him. So we'll move on to his grandson Idwal. So we don't know a lot about Idwal. He'd be the grandson of Anarad and the son of Titgwell III, but we do know that he was the last king of the Ystrad dynasty, and he'd inherit the throne in the mid-8th century, but the throne wouldn't pass to any of his heirs because he didn't have any. And we're not sure how long he ruled for actually, because it's never mentioned by any sources or anything. We do know that instead of his sister taking the throne, it'd be her husband, Sandher, the titular Prince of Argoed, and he is quite an interesting figure as well, I believe, and we'll be talking about him in the next video. So this comes to the end of the dynasty that Ystrad cleared here, but the dynasty does kind of continue on down for a long time. So, well, the first part of Galwyddel is done. I'll get the second part out in a few days. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.